My friends, the sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity.
The left has made history on November 4th, 2025. Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani has been elected as mayor of New York City. It was a night of celebration among all kinds of leftists, all universally understanding that this victory is the greatest American leftist victory in a very, very long time, possibly our greatest win ever. This video is not only about Mamdani's historic victory, but also my personal reflections on this win, the future of the left, and the work I believe we need to get done to not only maintain this Zormentum, but to build on top of it as well. All of this combines into one key question. What does Zohran Mamdani's victory mean for the future of the American left? Let me start off with this. This is a win for the left, even those like me who are more left than Zohran. This is not just me being libbed up, as I gave myself a 24-hour grace period to sober up. This is my genuine, non-intoxicated opinion that this is a win for all American socialists. We are in the era of the great destigmatification of socialism. Simply demonizing it as a dirty word isn't working anymore. So to all the people who constantly find themselves thinking that the best way to get people to align with socialism is to not say the word, you're wrong. Like, for starters, let's keep it a buck. They're going to call it socialism anyway. Mamdani is far closer to FDR than he is to Lenin, and yet they call him a full-blown communist anyway. I really wish they'd cut this shit out, man, but because, I already like Mamdani, and he already won. You don't need to keep selling him to me. Everything you do as someone on the left is going to get called Marxist, socialist, communist, or any other left-wing buzzword that they actually they can come up with.
The Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters, and people who, in many instances, have absolutely no clue what they are doing.
Hell, you don't even need to actually be left for them to use this against you. Kamala Harris literally compared Trump to a communist dictator when the fascist one's right there as a better comparison, but she knew what she was doing with that.
Democracy sustains capitalism. Capitalism thrives in a democracy. And right now we are dealing with, as I called him at my speech on the ellipse, a tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now in Donald Trump.
So, the Zohran approach of just being like, yeah, motherfucker, I'm a proud socialist, and you deserve free public transportation. It's a pretty good mitigation strategy. Because see, running from the word socialism, in my opinion, is a form of capitulation. You're capitulating to the will of both major parties by avoiding the word. And Zohran made a few acts of capitulation I wasn't a fan of, but I at least respect that he stood 10 toes down for socialism. The Democratic establishment and the Republicans are the ones demonizing the word. They are the ones who taught the masses it's a bad thing because they are absolutely terrified of our power. They know that once the people get a taste of how socialism can help them, their reign is over. That's the end goal. That needs to be the end goal. And during the Mamdani campaign, I found myself involved with much of the discourse regarding if Mamdani's a real socialist or not. If he's a real democratic socialist or he's just a social democrat. And a lot of other questions that I feel only serve the purpose of trying to assign him some arbitrary left-wing label. And after this win, my stance of where Mamdani aligns is pretty obvious. It should be obvious to all of you. Zohran Mamdani is a democratic socialist. It doesn't matter if you think his policies aren't real socialism, nor does it matter if you believe he's simply a social democrat. This victory has solidified him as a democratic socialist no matter what policy he passes as mayor. People all over the country watched him consistently call himself a democratic socialist. He once again identified as such in his victory speech.
I am a democratic socialist.
And right now, he is by far the most prominent democratic socialist in the country right now. So, no matter what your definition of democratic socialism was before, the Mamdaniist policies are the new definition as of November 4th, 2025. And there's no avoiding it. That's just the way it is. And I mean, not gonna lie, in a way, this kind of bothered me at first. Since, people instinctively drop the democratic part of his alignment and just call it socialism, leading to a lot of confusion. But now I see it as a blessing for pushing socialism in general. Studies have shown lately that the Democratic Party voter base is ready for socialism, and they see it as a favorable alternative to capitalism. So it is our job to meet the people where they are at, and currently it's under the disappointing Democratic Party. So let's steal the voter base for our movement and leave the party with nothing. And that's where the DSA comes in. See, this race further confirms something that I believe from the start. The DSA is by far the most effective way to get socialists elected. You are fully entitled to your valid opinion that the party's connection with the Democrats is aggravating and limiting. I agree. And I think the party has the power to break away and win elections as an independent third party all over the country. But this does not change the point. If you are a socialist aiming to run for office, the DSA and the Working Families Party are going to be your best friends. The success rate in comparison to the other left parties with ballot access is very difficult to ignore. However, all the credit for this win can't go to these parties. A lot of the credit needs to go to the local organizers and their groups. Tenant unions, labor unions, churches, cultural organizations. They were in the trenches together making this victory possible. This is why I believe that developing and growing these types of local community-run institutions needs to be priority number one of an American socialist movement. It is, in my mind, significantly more important than elections for proving to the masses that socialism represents them, and for showing socialism works, and to just show them that you are there for the community, which makes running local elections to represent the same communities that much easier to win. So we need to seek both political victories for socialism as well as community victory. The revolution will not be won through voting. Even if we had 200 Zohrans in Congress, this sentiment would still be the same. This is because the most you can hope to achieve as someone with a government position in our current system is to make reformative changes. I don't believe the issue with reform is reform itself. The issue is when reform is the end goal, as it so often finds itself being. Zohran Mamdani winning is a great start. It is a great start. And we need to use this great start as an opportunity to push it further. First, we need to stop the bleeding. This is done by winning elections on democratic socialist policies and developing socialist community programs to alleviate the conditions of the masses. The end goal obviously isn't just to stop the bleeding, but it is the most immediate goal. Then we can focus on, healing the wound, which would be fully destroying and replacing these systems that caused the bleeding in the first place. My dream goal is to see a fully socialist America where the workers democratically control their workplaces, where private corporations no longer own the resources and the means, where everyone has the access to basic human needs and the right to dignity. The road to get here is long and perilous. It won't be an instantaneous explosion. It's a long-term asymmetric war against the system. Every battle won is a victory. Every democratic socialist in office, every curious student choosing to read theory for the first time, every workplace and housing complex that becomes unionized, every person fed, clothed, or housed by our community programs, every time someone is able to turn to their community instead of the government. These are all wins that pave the road to revolution. So it is counterproductive and just straight up loser shit to run around telling people they can't be happy about this major victory. We can, but we need to make sure we don't stop here and we push it further. If you are really looking for someone to aim this anger and frustration towards, boy, do I got the perfect people for you to shit on.
Today is election day in New York City. Did you vote for Mamdani or Cuomo?
Look, I voted, and I look forward to working with the next mayor to help New York City.
Something that pissed me, and I'm sure many of you, off post-victory was seeing the Democratic counts celebrating Mamdani's victory. What the fuck you celebrating for? You weren't on the team. The Democratic Party has spent Mamdani's entire campaign undermining him. He put belt to ass in the primary, and instead of endorsing him, they withheld their support for the party's nominee. And even the ones who gave, the shitty endorsements, whether it was a silent endorsement, a half-assed endorsement, or just, flaccid support, they need to be addressed as well. Kamala Harris, Hakeem Jeffries, Obama, and the rest of the assumed Zohran supporters didn't use the same party unity bullshit they push when it comes to rallying leftist support for their weak-ass neoliberal candidates. If any powerful Democrat was a real one, none of them are, but if they were, they would have condemned Cuomo for trying to split the vote. It shows that the party's so-called unity sentiments will never be applied to socialists within the party. And socialists, no matter how much they win, no matter how much they bring in voters, they will always be outsiders in this party. So not only were Democrats not on the team, they were by far the biggest ops in the entire race, even more so than the Republicans. This gives a few takeaways that we need to understand and fully internalize before moving forward. The Democratic Party cannot be reformed. I have 2 videos about this, and I stand behind them. The party has shown time and time and time again to be antagonistic towards the real left, and this will not change. The Democratic establishment will always exist, as there is far too much corporate money keeping them afloat. I still believe that running for the party's nomination in the primaries as a socialist is still a wise move, as I said before, but the end goal cannot be to fix this party. Another thing, we don't need them. We can tell the liberal political apparatus to go kick fucking rocks. Long gone are the days where you need traditional liberal media, where you need corporate PAC money, capitalist donor support, or establishment politician endorsements to win. You don't need any of that shit anymore. Since we don't need them, there's no reason to capitulate to their standards. Socialists running for office don't need to bend for Zionism, billionaires, or imperialism. We can oppose them directly and openly, and the people will love us for it. The goal isn't to reform or save the Democratic Party. Fuck the Democratic Party. So when we push for a unified left movement with the goals of liberating the American proletariat, liberals are not in that coalition. So then what does that coalition look like? The Left Coalition Agreement is an idea I developed in a past video. I saw the way many leftists had this mentality of, I won't work with insert whatever left ideology here. This is a stupid ass mentality, since no one wins with that mindset in general. In all aspects of life, you're going to have to work with people that you don't fully agree with. Do I agree with Zohran Mamdani on every single thing he's running on, or he ran on? He won. No, I don't. But if I lived in New York, he would have had my vote, simply because he has policies that benefit the American proletariat. Anyway, I took all the aspects of what I feel makes someone left. Obviously, some of these can be negotiated since it's based on my own personal thoughts, and I don't represent everyone on the left. The full version I came up with has like 19 or so points, and I might release it on Substack at some point. But to keep this section of the video concise, I'll go in depth with the first 6 points only. Anti-capitalism. This part of the agreement should be obvious, but it's definitely not for some. The left must be staunchly anti-capitalist. This means the complete rejection of private ownership over the means of production. We obviously won't have fully democratized and worker-owned workplaces overnight, but it should be the end goal. Anti-racism. The full rejection of racism. Black and brown liberation must be a pillar of any left movement. The systems of capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism disproportionately impact the ethnic minorities. Reject the class reductionist sentiments that disregard the racial struggle. Embrace intersectionality instead. Eco-socialism. The liberation and preservation of the environment needs to be a primary concern. It is the most existential negative result of capitalism that will only make our suffering worse in the next few years. We must move to mitigate the damage and begin repairing the ecosystems we destroyed for our greed, or they destroyed for their greed. Nothing to do with me. Anti-imperialism. The anti-war stance is non-negotiable. Along with this, we must reject the funding of all wars and atrocities outside of America. Imperialism isn't just war. We need to make measures to remove our influence on other countries around the globe, end embargoes, and recognize the autonomy of the people in American territories. Anti-bigotry, full rejection of misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, religious discrimination, ableism, and all other forms of hate. The bigotry aimed at these groups, while by itself being abhorrent and terrible, it's also used to distract the masses from the economic issues caused by capitalism. But once again, that does not mean to not acknowledge all the harm caused by such hate. Democratic socialism / worker democracy. See, democratic socialism has always been a funny phrase to me, since socialism, at least in my mind, is supposed to be democratic. So this point only serves to reiterate that. The full wow, I can never get this fucking word right. The full democratization of everything is the end goal, from the workplace to the apartment complex. If you can agree to these 6 basic stances, and you aren't like some bigoted asshole, I'll gladly be in coalition with you. We have similar enough goals and the exact same enemies, and none of us have the power or resources to win by ourselves. But beyond ideological stances, there's another shared value of the left that we need to continue to uphold. I've said this many times before, and I'll continue to say it. I probably will have to keep saying it. Accountability is not purity testing. It is not leftist infighting to criticize each other when we are wrong. You guys get on my case when I make misleading or incorrect statements, even for like 5 seconds. It may piss me off for a minute or two, but I do greatly appreciate it. But I'm just a creator. The bulk of the accountability needs to be aimed at those who hold office, hold power, and also those who seek to hold office and hold power. We need to hold Mamdani accountable when he eventually capitulates every now and then. And I'm sure the New York DSA will do so. But this section, hilariously enough, is not actually about Mamdani. This section is about another so-called progressive who I feel much of the left went far too easy on. So back when Pete Kegbreath, the unqualified alcoholic sycophant currently running the Department of Defense, was revealed to have a Crusader cross tattoo, I never could have imagined that we would have another white man seeking important political position with a white supremacist tattoo in the same year. And it's not even just any old racist tattoo, it's a fucking Nazi tattoo. Seeing the mental gymnastics of the so-called leftists defending this shit has been wild, to say the least. But not as wild as the actual issue that the anti-imperialist left, like myself, have regarding Graham Plattner. The tattoo just makes it a million times worse, as well as harder to ignore. And yet the left is actively sweeping it under the rug like it's no big deal. Graham Plattner did 1 tour of killing brown people. Having so much fun, he decided to go do it again. He enjoyed the first 2 so much, he did a 3rd. This motherfucker did 3 tours. Then I guess he had some coming to God moment and finally realized he was doing fucked up shit. I don't know, man. I feel like 1 tour is more than enough to come to that realization. Then when you think it can't get worse, you find out the same motherfucker joined Blackwater after his service. Not Blackwater as in the Red Dead Redemption town, Blackwater as in the private military company. If I had to rank the 2 most imperialistic actions one as an individual could take, the top 2 is military and private military. And the excuse pushed by these so-called left media figures was desperation. Nigga, did they hold you at gunpoint and tell you to do 3 fucking tours? Did the private military company blackmail you? I hate to be the conservative here, but you could have gotten a job, bro. You seem to find one just fine after selling your soul to the mercenary company. And it's crazy. So we can easily understand desperation when it's a white man refusing to get a normal job, but not when it comes to Palestinian resistance or any black or brown resistance. Y'all condemn Hamas. You condemn political self-defense when the neutralized threat is white, and you would almost certainly condemn slave revolts if you were around for them. But Graham Plattner gets a pass. Why? I'm noticing a pattern here. Listen, I don't care if the people currently pushing hate and attempting to derail his campaign are Republicans or establishment liberals. That's not even the point. Fuck this dude. Anti-imperialism may be a side quest to y'all, but it's a non-negotiable for me. Graham Platter is an imperialist. Just look at his platform, man. It's right there.
In this section about corruption at the Pentagon, he starts by describing how the military is wasting money, but then calls for closing the massive shipbuilding gap, a purely imperialist concern as a means to counter China's strong trade infrastructure. He goes on to say, "I've seen under the hood. I know exactly how much money is wasted and where. Send me to Washington and I will work tirelessly to rebuild the American military." As an American in 2025, you need to be able to read past the liberalism. In this sentence, he's calling for a more efficient military, not less of it, the same way Kamala Harris spoke about the most lethal military in the world.
And America, we must also be steadfast in advancing our security and values abroad.
And then another person who the left struggles to hold accountable is Bernie Sanders. Some have called Bernie Sanders a sheepdog, but he's more of a shepherd. See, the dog only does what it's trained to do. The shepherd knows what they're doing and for what purpose. Bernie Sanders wasn't trained, groomed, or conditioned to lead the left back into the party. He chose the role for himself and refused to deviate from it. From 2016 to the present, Bernie Sanders went from being the best person the left had to one of the worst. He's a liberal Zionist, a capitalist reformer, and a false socialist. My defense for Mamdani is that he's not a party loyalist, at least not yet. He's just a guy who wants to do better for his city, and I greatly respect that. Senator Bernie Sanders, however, is a party loyalist. His end goal is to funnel the real left back to the Democratic Party. That, independent I next to his name is enough to fool many of you, but it's time to be honest. He's a Democrat. He's done nothing to hint otherwise. There was several times throughout his political career recently, from 2016 to now, where he had an opportunity to build up a third party that could have been successful. But instead, he did the same thing we criticized Jill Stein for, and did nothing for 4 years until it was time to run again, only for the party to screw him again. If he genuinely had the goal of leading the left in America, he could have done so, but he instead decided to kill the revolutionary spirit and motion in America. Mind you, I don't get any joy saying these things. I wouldn't be where I am politically if not for Bernie Sanders. But there lies the problem. For me and for many others, he was a launch pad into socialism. To many American leftists, he's the one launching them back into the Democratic Party. He promotes this defeatist mentality that victory can only be achieved through the Democratic Party, which is pretty fucking bleak when you realize who controls the party. Building a united coalition is a necessity for the left. When combined together, we have the numbers, resources, knowledge, and vision needed to fight for a better future for the American proletariat. We can compromise on certain points without compromising on our morals. We can help democratic socialists win office without excusing imperialism or excusing Zionism. We can continue to hold each other accountable and leave the cult-like mentality to both other parties. So my stance on developing left parties has shifted significantly. So when you ask me if I believe now is the time for a new left party, the answer is obviously yes. I'm sure most of us have came to the same conclusion at this point. So how do we build it? From the ground, do we build it from the ground up, or do we use an existing party? I think we do both. See, my ideal revolutionary party has two branches essentially. The electoral branch that purely focuses on political participation and elections, grassroots political campaigns, vetting candidates, pushing for legislation, things like that. Then there's a separate organizational branch, which focuses on building community programs, through political education and collaborating with existing community organizations. So imagine the Black Panther Party organizationally with the DSA politically. And I've said before that if the Panthers, who, did run for office at some point, had the access to a party like the DSA or the Working Families Party, they would have won their elections. So regarding if we start from scratch or not, here's my direct thought process. Both branches of this hypothetical party should be developed as two separate organizations and then combined together under one umbrella. The political branch should be developed from an existing left party that has the capability of winning elections over liberals and conservatives. If you look at the US House and other successful races, the DSA is the most successful party for running left candidates. So, should they decide to finally break away from the Democrats, we would have an independent left party that is already capable of dominating local elections. The organizational branch, however, likely needs to be built from the ground up. If the organizational branch is to take actions that the Black Panther Party did, then we need a new organization utilizing the Black Panther Party strategy, since that doesn't really exist today, at least at a national capacity. No major left party is focused on developing community food drives, housing, job unionization, after-school programs, free health clinics, community defense, and other community programs that exist outside of legislation. We need an organization that won't wait for the left to gain electoral power before developing these programs. There's several smaller organizations that are currently doing this great work today, and it would be cool if all these organizations could be united under a national organization, doing all these actions across the entire country. This is my framework for what the parties and actions I think, should be and would be. But then what's everybody's individual role? Because I don't think we need everyone in a party or an organization or a movement to all do the same exact things. The left is composed of people with varying skill sets, and it is in our best interest to utilize these skills for revolutionary purposes. Here are the 5 roles needed for a successful left movement in America. Some of you may very well be Fred Hampton and you're good at doing all 5 of these. But I think everyone has about 1 or 2 they already do or can specialize in, and it would be their asset to the movement. There's the organizers. The job of the organizer is simply to organize. This means to gather people into the movement and to manage the logistics of the movement. They organize the demonstrations, boycotts, and all other types of events. Typically, they're behind the scenes assembling the puzzle pieces together. A historical example of a really good revolutionary organizer is Ella Baker. For 5 decades, Ella Baker was a low-key organizer who believed in the power of a fully democratic bottom-up organizing. She worked with the NAACP and played a major role in the formation of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which is responsible for many of the revolutionaries like Kwame Ture. She serves as an example that a lot of the great, powerful, and necessary work for the movement comes without the public-facing persona and fame. It comes from the organizational grind that isn't seen but is always felt. And there's the educators. This role is for the educators and the propagandists. Back in the day, this would be the people who wrote the newspapers and the easy-to-read books on socialist theory and the dangers of the current system. Now it's composed of the content creators. The left YouTubers like myself, as well as the streamers, journalists, podcasters, TikTokers, etc. We make theory accessible to the masses. A historical example that I already know I'm going to get a lot of hate for is Lenin. Even if you don't fuck with Lenin, I'm willing to go as far to say he's one of the greatest socialist educators of all time. If you aren't a Marxist, read 2 or 3 Lenin books or pamphlets with an open mind, and you'll probably become a Marxist. For me, the state and revolution changed my life. But, for this day and age, we need to essentially be able to translate all past leftist theoretical works into consumable content with our own unique styles and perspectives. And there's the builders. This is the role of the people who make socialism physically tangible rather than theoretical. They build the programs that our ideology represents. The free breakfast programs, the food drives, the mutual aid, the health clinics. They function like the organizers, but rather than a people-focused approach, they understand the supply, funding, infrastructure, etc. Even though the example I'm going to give, had the political power to enact these changes, he still faced crazy obstacles to achieve what he achieved. My GOAT, Thomas Sankara. When he was in charge of Burkina Faso, he managed to vaccinate 2.5 million children against meningitis, yellow fever, and measles in a matter of weeks, initiated a nationwide literacy campaign, increasing the literacy rate from 13% in 1983 to 73% in 87, planted over 10 million trees, and built roads and a railway that tied the nation together, without foreign aid. If this can be achieved in Burkina Faso without foreign aid, then we can certainly build some community aid infrastructure without government aid. The defenders. This is the role for those dedicated to protecting the movement and their communities. This is needed now more than ever in the age of increased violence against marginalized groups. I won't openly advocate for violence, but I will for self-defense. Though defenders aren't just the armed guard of the revolution, they're the lawyers and the people who shelter the vulnerable, basically anyone who is actively defending the revolutionaries and the masses. My favorite example of revolutionary defenders has to be the Black Panther Party. They scared the white races of California so badly that the NRA and Governor Ronald Reagan at the time passed gun control laws. The strategist. The last role is for those who are greatly knowledgeable on theory, history, and political strategy. While sometimes they may not be the best at educating the average person, they can educate the educators on what theory to push. They are the ones we can consult for advice since they know the historical examples and the readings that discuss similar topics. It's important to stand against anti-intellectualism and have a movement that includes academics. Every left theorist whose writings are utilized today are historical examples of this. There would be no successful social revolution anywhere if not for Marx and Engels. Embrace the academics, do not shun them. Many are pretentious dickheads though, but that's a different topic. My first video on this channel was about this campaign, so seeing it end in a success is deeply satisfying. I feel a great sense of excitement and optimism for the left movement of this country. But as I've said, it is important that we make this victory the first of many rather than the stopping point. I am a socialist who believes that the revolution is the only way to permanently stop the system of capitalism that currently plague us today. These beliefs of mine don't coincide directly with the Mamdani policies or any popular left policy, and yet I celebrate. It's hard not to. But while we push the narrative further left, we need to understand the biggest takeaways from this win. Community programs need to be the bread and butter of the left moving forward. It was these programs and local organizers who played the key role in this win. The tenant unions specifically, but also the labor unions, independent left media, etc. So if you are inspired by Zohran and you would like to see more candidates like him, join and support these programs in your towns and cities. They need you, and you can make an immediate difference. The best selling point of socialism is being there for your community. It's the heart of every successful campaign, the heart of every successful socialist organization, and the heart of every revolution. If we aim to liberate the American proletariat, we must start by being present in our communities today. Peace. What's up, community? It's been a while since we talked directly, so I decided to do a bit of editor's notes. And also because when I first made the video, quite a few things got left out for not only time purposes, but also convenience purposes, because I did get pretty sick in the middle of the editing process of it. That's why my voice sounds pretty weird at some parts. I hope it's not too distracting, but I didn't really want to delay this video any further with a whole entire re-record. So that's why my voice sounds like that. I'm feeling a lot better now. I think I sound a bit different as well. Along with that, I just want to talk about a little bit about some sections I cut out. Actually, I'm not going to talk about those. The sections I cut out will probably appear in other videos, so I'll keep it a surprise for now. But no, what I really want to talk about is some of the, essentially give like a rebuttal in response to some of the feedback I got before this video even came out. Because when I hinted at the title of this video and what it was going to be about, many of you jumped the gun immediately and did make some assumptions about what my stance was going to be. I think you should refrain from doing that. I'm not going to shit on you guys too much, but I really think it's just good practice to not make judgments about a video before you actually watch it. The thumbnail can be misleading on purpose. You should really watch something to get the actual stance before you jump the gun and make an assumption. Many of you made assumptions about what the video is going to be about, and that's okay. But no. So then let's really talk about the Mamdani eventually selling out thing. That's, I think, what a lot of you guys' biggest concern was. And admittedly, I don't really address that sufficiently in the video, I don't think. So in the video, I do discuss accountability and how that's going to be the biggest thing we can use to, hold him accountable when he capitulates. Because at the end of the day, guys, that's all we can really do. We have to accept that he is going to capitulate. Hopefully not that often, but it's going to happen. And this just comes with the territory of being a Democrat politician. Because at the end of the day, he did run under the Democratic Party, and you got to be prepared to make those capitulations running under that party. Some of the capitulations, I don't think he had to have made, nor do I think he should make them, regardless of him being underneath the party. But I think it's very unwise to expect him not to capitulate a little bit. And I'm not going to lie, you guys are holding him to a far higher standard than we hold any other politician to. So he is obviously going to fall short of that because the expectations are extremely high. I'm willing to give him grace as long as the capitulations aren't like extremely egregious and anti-left. But then the other thing that I'm not too concerned that he's just going to sell out, right? It's only an issue if we make Mamdani the main strategy. He's not the main strategy. He's an important piece of the overall strategy, but we didn't put all of our eggs in one basket with Mamdani. Mamdani cannot be the only socialist we have in office. We need to run some other campaigns, some of which I plan on discussing in future videos. And then along with this, as I stated in the video, which is why I hope the biggest takeaway you guys got from the video, honestly, was the community program building. I truly believe that is more important than the elections. I believe community building is about 70 to 80% of the importance, simply because with strong community programs outside of the government, you can use these programs to run grassroots campaigns when you eventually decide to run for office. If the socialists in a town are feeding people with food drives, are housing people with tenant unions and shelters, doing clothes drives, after school programs, they're doing all these things that the Panthers did, right? And they run for office in the era of where we have the DSA and the Working Families Party, they will win in that area because the community knows them, the community's familiar with them, and they're actively helping the community whether they win office or not. They will win. And that, I think, needs to be the strategy. Because you also have to be prepared, right? And then, no, because the other thing is, which is probably my biggest disagreement with a lot of the socialist stance on elections, I actually don't think we should run campaigns just to raise awareness. I think that's a waste of everybody's money. If you want to raise awareness for your party, get your ass in the community and make those programs. I think that is a far more beneficial, more cost efficient, and just more overall useful endeavor of gathering support and recognition from the community rather than spending millions of dollars and taking our donations for a campaign you know you're not going to win. I think it's a waste, especially when people are so desperate for even a slight victory. So yeah, I know this is probably my most unpopular opinion regarding this. I would rather vote for a candidate on a democratic socialist, reformist type of platform before I vote for a hardline socialist that has no chance at winning. Simply because if raising awareness is the purpose, there's better ways of doing that than wasting everybody's money and time on an election. That's just my personal stance on it. I know many of you don't agree with that. That's fine. But yeah, that's all I wanted to clarify. He's going to capitulate, guys. And that's just, we just got to eat it. You just got to take it. Anyway, thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, really. So make sure you comment and share this video. And special shout out to everybody in the BGR Patreon for making this mission possible. They are the only reason I can spend all this time on these videos. Appreciate all of you guys, and I'll see you soon with either a new video or an announcement because there are some changes coming. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.